Hey guys, this is Hell Hades. This is a Raid Shadow Legends video. Guys, I thought I'd do a bit of a deep dive in the analytics of Raid right now. Pretty much a follow-on to my video I put out yesterday where I was chatting with Drock and we were talking about the kind of like state of the game. And I said, you know, I always do on a monthly basis a kind of like deep dive into analytics, into understanding how Raid is performing as a game, albeit it's kind of like historical data at this point because it's always a lagging month, but it does give us a good insight in terms of how Raid is tracking. And bearing in mind, you know, I've got a team of 18 or so people on the website who make a living from basically covering this game and producing content for you guys, and obviously I do it on YouTube. It's always good to stay ahead of, you know, what's the sentiment like in the community, and actually is that following through in terms of the amount of people that are actually playing the game. It's no surprise to anyone right now there's a lot of negative community sentiment going on. You know, certainly the changes that have happened, we spoke about it yesterday at length with Drock, and I'm curious actually to see whether that translates into data that Raid would make changes based on. And this is the thing, this is where there's a huge disconnect sometimes between a player like us and the people that make top level decisions within a business, because top level decisions tend to be directionally made based on numbers, based on analytics, data, cash in the bank, all of those things, which is what like the business will care about. So we're going to go into some of these things. I look at all free tools, by the way. I look at Sensor Tower to look at performance for games. I will look at Google trending. I will look at places like Social Blade to see how YouTube channels are doing. I'll look at hellhades.com and see how the website is performing. And then I can kind of make this overall picture of what's going on the scene. And obviously, then we have kind of like leadership meetings for the HH Gaming crew, and we decide if we need to make a change, whether that be start covering different games, whether that be, you know, doubling down on the amount of content we're going to put out for Raid, like all of these different things. So let's start with, I think, Google Trends. This is an interesting one. So I'm looking here over the last 12 months. And I would say throughout this last year, we've had some real low points. I think we're in probably our lowest point right now in terms of community sentiment. But we've also had some pretty high points where, you know, we started to see things like epic empowerment come in. We saw a number of quality of life things come in to some degree. And yeah, we've seen new game modes come in. Whether people loved them or not is kind of up to you guys, really. But ultimately, you know, Siege came in and it's a big game mode, whether you like it or not, I don't know. But yeah, this is quite interesting to me because almost the last lull or low point for Raid was almost like to the day a year ago. Yeah, Raid in the early stage of November 2023 was trending at like 69. What this does is it looks at the high point versus the low point, and will give you like a rating out of 100. So 69 versus today, 71. It's almost identical. And then you see through December last year, it ramped up basically because Raid did a whole bunch of new content releases and then they do a bunch of marketing to go alongside that. So this is Google Trends, which obviously it doesn't necessarily mean like, are you enjoying the game? It means how many people are searching for the term Raid Shadow Legends. And then there's different like spikes and peaks and stuff throughout the year. Normally when they do a big marketing campaign around an event like the Asgard Divide as an example, or the Monster Hunter stuff, like, and then you get to see how Raid is performing. But ultimately, it's kind of steady. You know, if you look at this for the year, there's not really much going on, but there is definitely a drop off right now. And it's similar to what we saw this time last year before the big kind of like December release. So that's something to watch out for. Interesting, I was looking at other games in the genre. Dragonair now has basically fallen off a cliff because they decided they weren't going to trade in US, which is like the biggest market for this style of game, unless they crack somewhere like, you know, Asian markets. But, you know, Watcher of Realms has been able to come in and be a real steady player. King Arthur has just launched. I also put Hell Hades in there to just sort of see how the website tracks against some of these other games in terms of search term. But then if you throw Raid over the top of these other games in the genre, just from a like Google Trends point of view, dwarfs anyone. Yeah, just literally like bam, smacks anyone out the park. So shows, you know, in this group of like newbies that are coming in with the same type of visual aesthetic as Raid, currently nobody's touching Raid at all, not even close. You know, if you were to look at, let's just remove this one. If you were to look at really popular games in like an anime style, so if you were looking at Honkai, for example, which is the kind of king of anime, you've got Honkai here. I mean, Honkai pushes Raid down considerably in terms of a level of searchable gameplay. But again, you know, a lot of the community here, they don't like the anime style, so might not even have bothered trying the game or being interested in the game. But you can see that there are players in this space that actually, yeah, they do the same to Raid that Raid does to the other ones that we consider competition right now. So that's the Google Trend stuff. Now let's have a look at the actual market analysis. I go to Sensor Tower for this stuff. So firstly, this is just literally, you have to pick a certain day in time, but this is just recent data here, literally today. How's Raid doing? It's top 2 in terms of cash through the door. This is on Google Play. So this is anything Android based. And in terms of downloads, it is still sitting at, it's interesting actually, because you do see this is for role-playing games. It's sitting at 18th behind a bunch of games I've not heard of that are not, they don't really come into our space, but there's not one here that really plays in our space that I'm aware of. Until you get down to 21, you've got Marvel Strike Force there. So yeah, so Raid's still getting, honestly, a decent chunk of downloads and is earning good amounts of cash. Yeah, so from that leadership point of view, these two metrics here, and this is just like literally a moment in time day. Let's pick any day. Raid number 1 and sitting, you know, top 20. Like it's consistent. Raid is consistently number 1 for this near enough all the time, okay, in terms of grossing. If we look on the App Store, which is, I mean, it's basically just anything iPhone-ish, it's always a little bit lower on the App Store for some reason. Maybe, I don't know actually. I don't know why that is, but it always performs better on Android than it does App Store, but still performs well. So, yeah. So from a top-level point of view, Raid are not too sad about what they're seeing. This is an interesting one. So I can look at Plarium as a business. Plarium owns Raid. They're owned by Aristocrat, who are a gambling company, casino-based company. And when we look at their stats, so it's got here Pixel United, who are the kind of like group of games within Aristocrat. Raid's one of those games. In October, they made $78 million. Okay? Raid, as a game, not as a casino like slots app, as a game, is easily their best revenue driver. Bearing in mind, this is just the Android side, made 8 mil, probably made like another 6 or 7 mil on iOS. So probably something close to 14, 15 mil in the month. And then they've got all of their revenue that comes in through Plarium Play as well. So Raid probably tops 20, 25 mil in the month, right? Whew, 20, 25 mil. Just let that sink in for a second. Their next best performing game is Mech Arena, which is getting more downloads, but is earning considerably less cash. Still good cash, 1 million in a month on Android. Probably like a 2 million a month game for them when you like wrap in all of their different stuff going on. But yeah, consider the difference there. 2 mil versus 20. It's like a 10% of their second best game versus their best game is like 10% of it. So Raid is still driving. Like if I'm a decision maker and all I'm seeing is numbers, I'm like, damn, we're doing great. We're doing great things. Well done, game team. that's the facts, right? So yeah, so at the moment, we're not seeing that community sentiment, certainly for October, dwindle down into the thing which actually drives decision. That's the facts. But this number here in terms of downloads is definitely lower than I've seen in previous months when I look at this. I've consistently seen over 500,000, and I guess that's partly due to the amount of money now that they spend on advertising, and there's a bit more work that's done in the business around retention. But yeah, still, it's no joke, right? 20 mil in a month, you're not upset with that if you are a company. Let's be honest. So I then go and look at the rankings, and I'm like, right, well, how are Raid performing versus the other games that I consider to be kind of like natural rivals, right? So I've got Dragonair. I might as well remove Dragonair, actually. I wonder if I can put Honkai in here. Honkai Star Rail is actually pretty much like king of the genre if they play in the same space. I don't know if they necessarily play in the same space in terms of where they align themselves to. But so when I look at sort of top role-playing games in terms of free downloads, you know, you've got Raid here are like the light blue near the top. Marvel Strike Force are close. You've got games like Summoner's War. Summoner's War's been going for over 10 years, and it still features pretty well. But you're talking like a top 300 game, very spiky actually. And Watcher of Realms actually really peaked in October. I think they had a big patch, and you can see they had a real kind of like a real enhancement of their performance, but then they dropped back down again. So, but you can see Raid consistently up there. If I look at grossing, did we earn cash or not? Raid over the last few months, literally number one apart from today. And now it's number two. So, I mean, if you've been topping the charts consistently for like 4 years, damn, you know, it's crazy actually. It's actually crazy. That's on Google Play. If I flip it over to the App Store, top grossing, it's nowhere near as high. iPhone, let me just make sure that's because I've not got role-playing game. Let me just check. Yeah, so it's still not bad though. It's like top 5 pretty much consistently. So yeah, from their point of view, they would say they're doing a hell of a lot right from a business. If I then look at sort of general, you know, content consumption. So I look at my YouTube performance. My performance is down. So if I look at 22 through to 24, you can see pretty much consistently now I get about 60 to 70% of the type of views that I used to get. What's interesting for me is when I notice if I don't put a video out, my standing rate of views, as in like natural consumption of older content, is way down. My views per video is about the same actually, but there's less people that are looking at old content that I've done. And that might be because there's way more creators now that you can just get more up-to-date information from. It might be that people view my old content as now just dated and not as relevant. It might also just be that I put out less videos now, and obviously my time is spent doing some Godforge stuff and stuff like that. So I'm just less active than I was. But yeah, you can consistently see that my kind of YouTube presence has dropped. And if I look at Ash here, he's kind of, so I was about 1.5, which is this level here for now. So me and Ash are at a similar level, and definitely you can see a bit of a drop off as well from Ash, but he seems to be picking things back up. I just picked out Nubs as a third one as a reference point. Nubs over that time has actually been pretty consistent actually. So he's not seen the same sort of drop off that I've seen, which again might just be that more people are diversified who they go to for their content, which is cool. You can see here, I know that Nubs was away for a month and then he's going to get this massive drop off. But other than that, it's pretty consistent. So, you know, there's kind of like this base level of engagement still happening in the community. They're still making tons of cash. The other reference point, which I use, is hellhades.com. We actually just pulled this together for the team, and it's just like a general update for what's going on the website. So this is literally since we launched the website 4 and a bit years ago. Or maybe it's almost exactly 4 years ago. And you can see that in terms of the amount of people visiting the site, again, it's pretty flat, slightly downtrending, but pretty flat, honestly, from a year ago. In fact, flat from a year ago. So we had a peak in the year before that, but ultimately it's been growth into a kind of pretty steady cycle. We've had about 13 million different people have actually come onto hellhades.com to view 281 million pages. And then the optimizer is closing in on 1 million different users right now. This is some interesting stuff. So most visited pages, promo page, tier list pages, and then individual champions, which were basically free. So Ultimate Death Knight, Rathalos, Ronda, yeah, it's all the sort of stuff. And this is a good message really for Raid. These champions, if they're half decent, create great engagement for your game. And actually, they're a massive win. I think doing the free legendaries on the login stuff, it's a massive win for the game. And it also correlates to higher user engagement generally. We're pretty flat year on year, slightly down 6%, but it does show that there's still a good volume of interest. And then in terms of people actually using the site, so the amount of time people spend on the site is up, which says to me that people are still engaged in the content we put out. So the content must be pretty good, or it's hard to understand, one or the other. But I think it's just the content is still good. And yeah, we're getting more engagement than we've ever got. Over 9 minutes, by the way, for an active kind of like user to come onto a website is extremely high. So it shows that people get some value from the content we deliver. But ultimately, Google search traffic, so people coming to us from Google, is down about 13% year on year, which again shows there's less people just generally searching terms for Raid Shadow Legends. So it feels like, you know, given everything I've just gone through, Raid are weathering the storm. Okay, they don't currently see a reflection of poor performance based on the community sentiment. That might change because, as I say, this is all lagging stuff. I'm seeing October's performance, and you know, frustration can come and go quite quickly. But I really do think they need a big win in December to give them that push back like we got last year. And yeah, I mean, obviously they get deeper analytics than I do, but currently the analytics tell me everything's fine when actually the sentiment tells me everything's burning, which is really odd. Anyway, there you go. Hope that was useful for you guys, and I'll see you in the next one.